Ladies and gentlemen, we are the Plant Code, and I'm Max.
And I'm Eric, and today we are recording again from the Youth Hub X in Emirates Towers. And Max, what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to be talking about what happened last week at the Vegan Springfest in Dubai, where we tried recording an episode live and it didn't go to plan. That's why there wasn't an episode last week. So we're going to share the tips that we received from John Oberg and Soul Eubanks, and also stuff that we wish we'd known before we recorded the episode.
We'll give you a few aids and a few tips in case you will be wanting to do a speech or a talk in front of a bunch of scary eyes. So tune in on Sunday and you'll find out more about that.
Tune in on Sunday.
You're listening to the Plant Code Podcast, brought to you by Max and Eric.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It's the Plant Code Podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Eric.
And we're super excited to be here as always. We're at the Youth X Hub Dubai, and I don't know where to look because there's cameras everywhere. There's a camera over there, microphones.
We have set up so much equipment and half of them are not even working. But we just thought it would be pretty cool and we'll feel professional for once at least. And we'll try to make the most out of it while it lasts.
Yeah, we're doing a bit of an overkill on the equipment in this session because last week we were at the Vegan Springfest in Dubai, and we were asked to record live an episode of our podcast, which actually didn't quite go to plan as we would have hoped. So we wanted to do an episode about what we did wrong, how we prepared for it, how we could have prepared better, and some of the tips that we want to share with you.
Yeah. So in all, I think it did go quite well. It was just that we were not really prepared on the technical side of it, and that was maybe one of the things that we were going to share with you. So today will not really be much about the topic about veganism or plant-based. It will more be about how to get your head around if you are to share some information amongst a big group of people and it's your first time, what are the things that you can think about, and so on and so forth.
And also we'll be sharing some tips that the great John Oberg and also Soul Eubanks shared with me like a few weeks before. They were kind enough to give some tips on how to prepare for these events, so we'll also be sharing those with you. So, Eric, what were we trying to do at the Vegan Springfest?
So basically, we got in contact with a group called the Dubai Vegan Community, and yeah. So basically, she was, or the one who was hosting the event, put together basically a gathering at the Mango Tree in JBR, Dubai. And so it was basically an event just focusing on getting vegan people together and basically share stories and ideas and just coming together. And then we took the opportunity to do a little bit more. So we said that, you know what, let's try to script something together and tell people a little bit about what it is to be vegan, how we became vegan, and small facts that might change the opinions of other people.
Yeah, and this is bearing in mind, we're not public speakers. I mean, I'd never spoken in public before in my life. You neither, I don't think.
I was actually best man at my sister's wedding. So I got a little bit more comfortable than I would have been. But there was still a lot of loopholes that we could have improved. But you know, you always become smarter afterwards.
And bearing in mind, this was after the second episode of our podcast. We literally just received ethical alcohol. I'd put a hashtag Dubai Vegan, and then they reached straight out to us. Yeah. And I was like, we can't say no. It's a great opportunity for us to share a message, to kind of give it a try and speak about veganism as we're passionate about the topic. So we kind of thought, well, we might as well do it. We'll try our best. And we did. So the way that we prepared for it, and I think that was maybe a little bit wrong, was we prepared for it the same way as we prepared for the other podcast episodes.
Yeah.
So with a lot of facts, a lot of numbers.
We didn't bear in mind that we were going to have like 80 pairs of eyes just projecting at us.
Yeah, we can't just like look at an iPad to kind of refresh our numbers and you kind of figure out like, oh, what's the percentage? Is it 75 or 80? It's live, so you can't just stop it and then start it again.
That is true. And that is obviously, that is one of the things that, you know, we call that, well, most people know it as stage fright. And that's usually when you start getting these negative thoughts in your head. What if I screw up here, and what are people going to think? And a lot of these things. And that's some of the things that we might, or we will actually share in this episode.
Yeah, and that's like the first tip actually that John Oberg gave me, because I had a telephone conversation with him. He was kind enough to spare some time, and he did say, like, people can't relate to big numbers in general. People relate more to personal stories, to when you discuss a feeling and you make people feel emotions. So he said to me, don't drown them with numbers. Try and bring it down to one individual animal and tell a story. And like you told the story, for example, about when you saw
about the
people
dog
beating dogs and stuff like that. So I think that was a mistake that I made by trying to put too many facts into it, throwing in numbers and trying back it up with numbers, when just giving something more relatable and more emotional maybe would have had more of an impact on the day.
Yeah, I think also with numbers, people start then doing small calculations, and some people might get different answers. So sometimes it can be good to relate to like something that is an everyday usage of an equipment. Let's say if you save I don't know, if you shower 5 minutes less a day, you will save the quantity of six full swimming pools, full of water. So you can try to relate a little bit like that. But obviously, when there's so much numbers, it also gets quite overwhelming, and then people, they tend to forget.
Switch off pretty quick.
Personal stories are always more.
Yeah, because when you say 70 billion, 700 billion, or 7 billion, you don't quite get the same scale of it as if you kind of really tell a story that's going to connect with people, and that's what they're going to remember. You might remember one number, but people are going to question the sources where you got that information from, and things like that. So also, we had big problems with the equipment on the day, like serious equipment.
And huge thanks to Mango Tree for setting up and providing us with the equipment. We got some good speakers, and it was just basically how the auditorium, basically the restaurant hall, how it was kind of laid out. You had 2 speakers. You can never go behind the speakers because then you get this feedback.
Yeah, the Larsen noise.
And that basically that's unbearable sound. So you can't really do much. And so the best thing is basically to go further away from the speakers and not aim the microphone to the speaker, because then basically it just picks up whatever comes out of the speaker. And also we had the screen where you prepared some statistics and so on, and that was too far away because it was sort of a long dining hall with tables and people in the back. It was impossible.
And I think the mistake I made with the slides as well was most of them were actually screenshots, so the quality of the image wasn't great. So once we kind of expanded the image to the size of that screen, it just looked terrible. So if I was to do slides again, I'd choose higher quality images and bigger files as well.
Yeah. The projector and once again, all the equipment was great. It was just the setup, and I think if we would have done this again, definitely the equipment setup would have been different. And like you said about the quality of the images, but these are that's super easy to adjust.
Of course, yeah, but we didn't know. We arrived 1 hour before. We're like, oh, this seems good. Let's try it. Yeah. We were using the same lapel microphones that we're using now, actually. And
hopefully you guys can hear us.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually working today. But
just sitting.
Yeah, the thing is, we had them pointing down, which is what's recommended for when you're recording your voice. However, we were in quite a noisy, crowded place, so it was picking up more of the surround sound, especially if we moved further away from the speakers. Yeah. That all you could hear was other people eating and not us actually talking. So the recording was awful. That's why we couldn't make an episode out of it.
True.
And that's why we're talking about it now. So if you're speaking in a public place with a lapel microphone, you probably want to have it closer to your mouth and pointing
I actually have it pointing up or outwards.
So we'll see whose audio quality is better today.
You guys maybe just be hearing Max the whole episode, and I'll just be...
Well, we've got 4 microphones set up, so if nothing picks up as today, so...
No, hopefully it's not going to be like that. Yeah. What are the pros and the cons? So basically we can talk about the pros. So what is the thing that when we did this event, what do you think we did good there?
Obviously we're always our own worst critics, and we were tough on ourselves after the event, but then we did talk to a few people, and obviously they saw we had some issues with technical stuff, but I think people appreciate when you try. We're just 2 guys, we're far from perfect, we're just trying to share a message of love and compassion, like we did say, and people appreciate that. We did get out there, we gave it a shot, we did our best, we knew why we were doing it. And I think that's the most important thing. When you know why you're doing something, even if it doesn't quite go to plan, it gets a little bit easier.
I think that is a very valid point, actually. You also need to understand why you are doing this. If you were to go out and be a critic about a movie, it's going to be difficult in that sense. But what we do is what was for a good cause. And a lot of people know that. And, you would never... as far as I saw, there was no people that were gonna, that were not agreeing with us or, wanted to ask hostile questions and stuff like this. Everyone was agreeing with you in the sense that they found it interesting, and all of our sources and all of our facts come from, academic sources, which
World Health Organization,
which we are very particular about, because there is a lot of false information, and that's something also. If you're gonna do something like this, make sure you've got valid information, backed information, and research information.
Yeah, and you can quote the source it's coming from as well. Correct. I'm using this example, from Peter, from World Health Organization, from American Heart Disease. There's plenty of very valid sources of information that you can use. Yeah. And where I think we have a great power is that we're not trying to promote ourselves. we're trying to promote a cause.
Yeah.
We're trying to promote veganism, a healthier lifestyle, animal rights and things like that. So even if like it didn't quite go to plan and maybe we looked a bit stupid, we're still putting across a message that's important, and that's where we can only win.
That's basically the fundamental of this thing, is that we are going in there to make to spread the information, and it's for a good cause, nothing else. That is the number one priority. And then obviously the way that you look, the way that you talk, the way that you dress, the way that you interact, that's a different thing. But as long as you basically blow out that message to them, that is it.
Yeah, and then we were talking with people after the event, and a lot of them were very thankful that we came, and we did talk about what we wanted to talk about and asked us some questions, and then people were curious about the episode. What the fuck?
That was my flip-flop. I didn't fart.
About the episodes that are to come. So I think it is great. If ever you have the opportunity to talk about veganism in public, go for it. You know, even if you're not a natural speaker, just try, you know, and, and maybe it will impact someone. Maybe one person in there will be like, oh, that is a valid point. I'm going to try. You never know where that's going to lead in the future. So it's all beneficial to give it a shot.
That's true. Yes, I mean, the pros obviously was the fact that we were trying to do a good cause for this, which we did, and we successfully did it, I think. We were lucky, obviously, with I mean, we had our equipment that we had, but obviously the setup was not in our favor. We had amazing people that were there, and I think that's one of the things that obviously helps as well. And I'm going to mention a bit of a few lists or a few points later on what you can do if you're going to speak in front of people, and small things that you can think about. But one of the things that I realized was that interaction with the people that are there a little bit in beforehand, because it breaks the ice, and it's always going to be easier to speak in front of your, let's say, friends, your family, because you know it. You don't have to break that ice. But when you have, I don't know, a sea full of new eyes that are just staring at you, it does get overwhelming.
Yeah, that's true. I understand that, because, for example, we had a couple of friends there. Jacob was there, who was with us a few weeks ago on the episode. And, you know, to be able to look at a familiar face, it's slightly comforting, you know, like to be able to focus in, zone in a bit on a familiar face, and then you can kind of keep going again.
That's true. That's actually an instinct that I think a lot of people have, that when you know that someone is there to give you, you know, at least a social comfort, whatever it might be, you do tend to shift your eyes to that person. And obviously a nice acknowledgement with the head is good. If they're just like, then it's a different.
And one other thing I wanted to discuss, because before the event, I also was in contact with Soul Eubanks. I mean, if you don't follow him on Twitter or Instagram, you should do. We'll put his hashtag or @ whatever it's called down below.
Hashtag link.
His hashtag. He's a really cool guy, really nice. He says a lot of amazing stuff and really funny stuff on Twitter, always promoting veganism. And so we had a bit of a chat, and he was explaining to me how he prepared when he was talking in public. So the way he does it, he actually repeats it like 12 to 15 times. He doesn't learn it off by heart, but to get of a flow. And I think maybe that's one thing that we could have done, is we did it like once before we kind of went through it. But I mean, if he's doing it 12 to 15 times to get a flow for it, so you kind of know where you're going next, you don't quite have to refer to the notes as much, you're more confident. And like we said, he probably doesn't have as many numbers in it as well. So it's more of telling a story. So to bring it into telling a story is probably better than just enumerating numbers.
That's true.
So thanks, Soul Eubanks, for that tip.
So one of the things that we do want to mention is this whole thing about stage fright. It is very common amongst people, and to be honest, I did suffer from it. I was stumbling a lot of my notes and stuff like this, and obviously these are the things that if you accept them, it's going to be far more easier for you to improve for the next time. But what a lot of people do is that they let themselves go through that silent terror, and it just continues on, and it can go on to your private life, and that's when it can become quite critical.
Would you do it again? Like, say someone offered us the opportunity to speak again at an event, to record another episode live, would you say yes?
Oh yeah, I think if you would have asked me that question, I mean, I was very critical to this in the beginning, not because of the event or whatever was organized, but the way that I just felt, and I didn't feel comfortable.
You didn't really want to do it?
I didn't really want to do it because I do have a stage fright, and I'm quite open about it. But then instead of accepting the fact that I am afraid of speaking in front of people, am I just going to allow myself to be afraid then, or will I do something about it? At least now I tried. I did acknowledge that fact that I was a bit nervous, but I know for a fact that when I go and do this again, I will definitely feel more comfortable about it. And
it's a great opportunity to be able to speak in public, because you never know when you're going to do it again. And it's a great way to talk to people and to share a message, and that's why we've got like 2 cameras set up this time to put that pressure on.
I don't know which one to look at. I'm like constantly like this.
Yeah, look straight down the middle.
Man, if there was like 2 people standing behind them, I probably would have freaked out even more.
Nah, you'd be fine, man.
News anchor.
Fine. And also, I think one very good thing we did, because I mean, we talk a lot about the negatives, is before the event, we reached out to a lot of different companies in Dubai that had a lot of vegan products, and we wanted to kind of promote them for the non-vegan people that were there to give away prizes, so that then they could like have an access and like, oh, it's great, they talked about veganism, but what do I do about it, you know? So we gave out quite a lot of prizes, there were a lot of really good brands that reached out to us. And so that kind of breaks that ice, and when you don't really know what to say, you can be like, prize time!
Prize time!
it's like adverts, you know? And so we asked a few questions with obviously more numbers and statistics, making people guess the figures of certain things, like how many land animals are killed every year and stuff like that. And
yeah, that was a really good thing, because that also gets you more interactive with the people that are listening. And I mean, who doesn't like prizes? I mean, I was when I was handing out these vouchers, I'm like, these are mine.
Yeah, I mean, we had 10 free pizzas, we had like 250 dirhams of shopping.
It was incredible, to be honest. So, you know, and that gets people also more interested, because they, you know, some people might not think that, oh, information is not enough for me to retain my attention to these guys. But once you start getting, you know, more out of it, then
yeah. And it also breaks that kind of me and you, like, oh, we're talking down to you about veganism, we're telling you how it's supposed to be. It kind of brings in a bit more of a fun aspect and interaction, which is important, because it's not just about us telling you what to do, because we don't necessarily know what to do, you know. No. We can only share our story and how we do things.
Yeah.
And then if you break that ice and make it a 2-way conversation with people answering your questions, then it makes it a lot more interesting, and people are more likely to interact as well.
And like I said, interaction with the people that you're trying to, you know, talk to, it will be a lot easier. It's like, is it easier to talk in front of your parents, or is it easier to talk in front of a stranger? I mean, your parents, because obviously they know you and so on, so you don't have that sense of becoming nervous or, you know, making a fool out of yourself. So that's why, you know, getting to know your audience is a great way, getting them to interact. And
yeah, and it's good to try and, like you say, get to know them, so that you can gauge as well your speeches. That's one of the things that John Oberg also mentioned, is get to know who you're talking to, because maybe the crowd's going to be 90% vegan, so most of the arguments they're not interested, like they already understand it, so then you can kind of relate and try and create more of a community about it. If there's a lot of non-vegans, you're going to have to explain more about what you're trying to say and go more into depth. And I think that's a very valid point. And another thing that he mentioned was, most of the time people aren't actually even going to be listening to you. Like, you're going to be talking and people are going to be eating, looking around, walking around. You don't have people's like undivided attention. It's not a TED talk. No. And even TED talks, I don't know if people are paying attention the whole time. So it's really tough to keep that flow going when there's always disruption, you know, and stuff going on. So it's really hard to like focus and keep it like that flow. It's probably a good idea to keep into account what Soul Eubanks said, which is like, do it 12 to 15 times, so you've got that flow automatically. You can just keep the things coming, and you've always got the ideas there to pick out, or have some prizes you can just throw in at any time. Yeah. Which we did.
And I think people were very grateful for that. And
actually, one thing I wanted to mention as well is, for example, I was quite disappointed when we left the evening of how things went, because you know you always want things to be perfect, and it wasn't. And then on the day 2, I was thinking, should I even go? Because I was feeling slightly embarrassed of how it went for us. I was like, you know what, I'm going to go, I'm going to make the best of this. I'm going to try and meet people, because it's not about me, it is about spreading the message as well. That's what I wanted to get past, the whole personal pride thing. And so I went there the next day. I still brought all the material. I brought this camera with me, which is really good, this microphone as well, and this microphone. And I used the opportunity to make some interviews with people. So you never know like what's going to happen. There was like, met some crazy, well, we are crazy, but very interesting people, and they told me their stories. And I've been sharing these on Instagram, Facebook, and on our YouTube channel as well. So do check them out. Incredible people, and they're going to be coming onto the podcast. So if you have the opportunity, go meet people, talk to them, and it's only going to spread the love, you know?
Yeah, it's true. And how you must have felt a lot better, especially the second day that you went, you know, and it kind of reassures as well from the following day, you know, like, oh, okay, at least I went good now, and now you made it. You showed them as well that you are an informative guy, you know what you are talking about. It was just that there were certain external forces that just didn't go along.
But it is hard to put that pride aspect on the side, you know, it's a human thing, and I feel bad almost saying it, but the second day there were other speakers as well, and obviously they had the same setup. They came across the same problems, which obviously I didn't want that to happen to them, but seeing that they had a bit more experience in these things and they still had the same problems, at the same time it's reassuring to know that, you know, these things happen. You know, nothing's perfect. You see stuff on TV, like you watch TV series and everything's perfect because they do it multiple times. Yeah. These are live events, you know, things go wrong and it's just how you continue, and if you give yourself a second chance to do it again as well.
I think that's the competitive stuff, because we're both very competitive, and I think that's like, we're never, you know, fully satisfied with our performance. We always want to do better, and that's good though, because if you don't have that, you might never actually get to the point of where you know, increase your outcomes.
Because I was thinking, like, why are we doing this podcast? What gives us the legitimacy to talk at this event? Maybe we should stop doing it, you know, because then it's the pride aspect. But then now I really think that was a great learning experience for us to move forward, you know, and just keep on trying, because all we can do is try.
So yeah, I mean, like we've said, we've mentioned a lot of important points, and we are now doing this episode because we want to try and help people that want to do something similar. And one of the things that I suffered from, or maybe you, Max, as well a little bit, is the stage fright, and that is super common. And it's important that you do understand what it actually means, because it can take a huge toll on your self-esteem and self-awareness if you don't accept it. And if you're not going to work towards it, it might once again lead into your personal life. You might miss a promotion opportunity at a job or so on.
Even on the personal side of it, like you said, you spoke at, for example, a wedding, your sister's wedding, I believe. If you're afraid of public speaking, you miss on the opportunity to speak at loved ones' weddings and leaving a message, you know, beyond veganism and all that, just for yourself as well, you know, to share a message. Yeah. It's great to give it that chance and to try and just talk.
Yeah, it's true. Noting though, I did have 3 glasses of champagne before, so I did loosen up.
Well, I think we had 2 beers before the event started.
But that's also one thing that I wanted to mention about it, is that for me, alcohol doesn't really work, because for me, I have a bigger chance of losing the point. For me, I tend to maybe digress more when I drink and so on. Yeah. So, but for some people, it loosens them up. So consider your alcohol intake before you do these things. Also, I don't know, also with what you eat, but that's a more long-term thing to do.
But I would say, like, I mean, we did have a beer before. I thought that would help. It didn't. Honestly, it didn't help. Like, you're just conscious of it then. I said I wasn't going to have a beer before, and then I did. And then, you know, I kind of felt, is this affecting the way I'm talking? You know, because you're already very self-conscious. Yeah. It's just don't do it, I would say. If you're going to speak in public, don't have a drink before. And it's better for your health as well. Yeah.
When you're nervous, you know, your blood flow does increase, and obviously that will transfer all the alcohol around, so it affects all sorts of nervous system, and you start talking about your mother instead of what you're actually supposed to do.
We usually do that anyways.
Yeah, it's true. I love my mom. Yeah. So obviously alcohol intake is one of the things. Don't start to think terrible thoughts. Like, don't be like, what if people don't like me? What if people are taking pictures of me now and they're gonna make fun of me? And stop those things, because 99% of the times people won't even do it. Yeah. And it's that frightening thing, and that's the you know, self-esteem effective side of it, where you're afraid that that's going to be affected, and you then, you know, put yourself into this fight or flight mode.
And one of the things I remember you mentioned before that you were a bit worried about was the questions people were going to ask us.
Oh, yeah.
And you can overthink it and thinking to try and get the answers to all the questions. And I was looking into a lot of them, because I mean, like I said, we don't know everything. I spent a lot of time on carnismdebunk.com. They have the answers to most of the questions people ask. But ultimately, you're never going to have all the answers to all the questions. So if you don't know, just say I don't know. Yeah, I mean, and then what's the chance of someone actually asking that question that you don't know the answer to? Yeah. You can maybe ask someone, if someone else in the audience wants to answer that question, or you can bring in other sources. You don't have to be perfect. It's like a lot of things about veganism. People say, oh, you can't be vegan unless you're absolutely perfect. Same with zero waste. Unless you're absolutely perfect, you can't be an environmentalist. But if everyone tries a little bit, then you're already getting somewhere. You know, there's already progress.
Use your resources, and like you said, like, if we're not perfect, we don't know everything, and if you don't know, just say it, I don't know, instead of then throwing out false facts and might look impressive in the beginning, but then once again, if the real fact comes across and it shows that you were wrong, then that will affect it even more and the aftermath. So.
I think that's one of the big problems with social media today as well, is that everyone's trying to portray this perfection through the image that they give. But one thing that we did initially was break that ice. Be like, okay, we've not been doing this for long. We're not perfect. We're just trying to share the message. Don't expect us to be looking down at you, judging you, thinking that we're better. We're not, you know, it's the way it is. I mean, look at the setup we have today. It's incredible, but we don't own this equipment. We're not going to pretend like this is in our house. We're not going to pretend that we're professional.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have said it. Maybe we should be like, yeah, we're in our studio here now. We have
in my 6th bedroom, you know.
Hopefully in a couple of years, this will be our studio.
Yeah.
This is something what it would look like. We are working on it, and your support helps.
Yeah. I want to thank the YouthX Hub for supplying most of this incredible equipment that we don't know how to use and we don't know if it's going to work. So, yeah, it's insane the equipment that they're putting at the use of young creative people. So we thought we might as well make the use of it today. And also, one thing we didn't mention was what we were actually talking about on that day. And what we were discussing was why veganism is the future. And we were trying to open the topic a little bit, discussing about the health aspects of it, discussing the environmental aspects, and obviously the animal rights aspect of it. And it's quite a broad subject because we thought there'd be quite a lot of non-vegans, so that's what we wanted to get into. So this was a bit of a special episode today. And then we'll also release the content that we wanted to do on that night.
We'll do a separate episode. Maybe it's not going to be the next one, but there will be an episode where we will mention everything that we spoke about that particular evening. So you guys, in case there was something that you wanted to recall back, you will see that in one of our episodes. We won't tell you which one, so at least you can listen to all of them.
And we've got a lot of great interviews lined up as well. I mean, just from that event, met so many incredible people. So there'll be a lot of interesting interviews coming in the weeks to come as well.
Kobe Bryant, Barack Obama, Jimmy Fennell.
Of course, there's a B-listers. We might get some, I don't know, go for Lance Armstrong and.
Did I just say Jimmy Fennell?
Yeah.
Isn't it Jimmy Kimmel?
Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel.
Anyway,
Jimmy Fennell. I'm sure there's
that's
Jimmy
a vegetable.
I'm gonna have to contact and find a Jimmy Fennell. Hey, he's going to tell us something about veganism. You said alcohol? Jokes aside, but like you said about this whole thing about if people ask you questions, one thing that does help, which I have learned quite a bit from, be informative, know a little bit about what you were talking about. For me, I wish I would have prepared because I had a lot of things going on the side with my studies and everything, so I didn't get that full time to actually review a lot of these things. I mean, deep down I know these things, but it just didn't come that day that I needed it. And obviously with the whole, the situation, the external forces that were happening, it didn't really help. So
knowledge is power basically, and it gives you the confidence. When you know what you're talking about, it's a lot easier, and you're not going to be put off as much once you're on the spot in a sense. So.
Why is it so easier for us to talk about this now than it was then?
Well, because it's just you and me and 25 cameras and 48 microphones in a room. You know, it's so easy for us to do.
Maybe we should do this when we have an event like this. We should maybe tell people, bring a camera and just put up the camera in front of you. So maybe we'll feel more comfortable about it.
Maybe.
Yeah. So we just mentioned a few things or a few points about how to improve if you're going to have, I don't know, a speech or a talk in front of many people. So certain things that you can think about that we learned and that we are blossoming out to you. And like I said, time has run off quite quickly.
Yes, so I think we'll wrap it up. Just once again, thank you to John Oberg. Thank you to Soul Eubanks for sharing the information that you did. We look forward to interviewing you guys and having us on our podcast soon. So tune in next Sunday for yet another episode of the Plant Code Podcast.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Max.
You're listening to the
Plant Code Podcast.
Over and out.